little girl of the single father said, "Your helicopter will explode." And the Millionaire woman CEO froze. "Just before we start, this community spans every continent. Drop your city's name if you feel comfortable sharing." The November wind whipped across the helipad atop the gleaming 40-story Manhattan Tower, carrying with it the promise of winter. Victoria Sterling, at 27, the youngest female CEO in Fortune 500 history, strode toward her private helicopter with the confidence that came from building a $2 billion empire from nothing. Her Armani suit cut through the wind like armor, her stilettos clicking against the concrete with metronomic precision. "Ma'am, we need to clear the area," her head of security, Marcus, called out over the rotor wash. His attention fixed on an unexpected sight: a maintenance worker and his young daughter standing near the service entrance, both looking distinctly out of place on the executive helipad. The man, dressed in a faded blue jumpsuit with Sterling Industries maintenance embroidered on the chest, held the hand of a small girl who couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Her strawberry blonde hair danced wildly in the helicopter's downdraft, and her second-hand winter coat hung loose on her thin frame. But it was her eyes that made Victoria pause mid-stride. Startling blue, almost luminescent in their intensity, fixed unwaveringly on her face. "Sir, you need to leave immediately." Marcus moved toward them, his hand instinctively reaching for his radio. "This is a restricted area. How did you even—" "Please," the maintenance worker, his name tag read Michael Chen, interrupted, his voice desperate. "I'm sorry, I know we shouldn't be here. Sophie just—" She insisted. She said she had to see Ms. Sterling. She's never done anything like this before. Victoria raised a manicured hand, stopping Marcus. Something about the child's unwavering stare held her attention. In her years of hostile takeovers and boardroom battles, she'd faced down some of the most intimidating people in business. But this child's gaze carried something different. Not challenge or fear, but an unsettling certainty. "It's fine, Marcus," Victoria said, checking her Patek Philippe. "We have 3 minutes. What does she want?" Michael's face flushed with embarrassment. "Sophie, honey, tell Ms. Sterling what you told me. Then we need to go, okay? Daddy could lose his job." The little girl released her father's hand and took 3 deliberate steps forward. The security team tensed, but Victoria remained still, inexplicably drawn to this strange encounter. Sophie's small voice carried with surprising clarity, despite the helicopter noise. "Your helicopter is going to explode." The words hung in the air like shards of ice. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Marcus snorted, a sound caught between disbelief and derision. 2 other security guards exchanged amused glances. Even the pilot, visible through the cockpit window, seemed to be suppressing a smile. "Sophie." Michael's face drained of color. He rushed forward, scooping his daughter into his arms. "I'm so sorry, Miss Sterling. She watches too much TV. She doesn't understand." "The fuel line," Sophie continued, her voice muffled against her father's shoulder but still audible. "Under the left engine. It's going to break in 73 seconds. Victoria felt the first prickle of unease. The child's specificity was disturbing. She glanced at her helicopter, its rotors already spinning, ready for her flight to the Chicago merger meeting that could define her company's next decade. "Ma'am, we really need to go," her assistant, Patricia, urged from the helicopter door. "The Bentley Acquisition Committee meets in 2 hours. "Ms. Sterling, I'm terribly sorry." Michael was backing away now, Sophie still in his arms. "She's been having these episodes, bad dreams, ever since her mother died last year. The counselor says it's her way of processing grief." But Victoria wasn't listening to him anymore. She was watching Sophie's face, the way the child's eyes tracked something invisible along the helicopter's fuselage. The girl's expression held no triumph, no satisfaction at causing a scene. Just a terrible, quiet certainty. 60 seconds, Sophie whispered. "This is ridiculous." Marcus stepped forward. "Ma'am, should I escort them to security? This man clearly breached protocol bringing a child up here." Victoria's mind raced. In the corporate world, she was known for her uncanny ability to sense danger, hostile takeovers, market crashes, betrayals from within. It was what had saved her company 3 times over. But this This was a 7-year-old child with grief-induced fantasies. And yet, 45 seconds, Sophie said, her voice growing urgent. Please, the left engine, where the blue cap meets the silver tube. There's a crack you can't see. Victoria looked at the helicopter. Her helicopter, the machine she'd flown in hundreds of times, maintained by the best mechanics money could buy, inspected just that morning. She thought of the meeting in Chicago, the 12 board members waiting, the deal that would cement her legacy. 30 seconds. Michael was at the stairwell door now, fumbling with his keycard while holding Sophie. I'm sorry, he kept repeating. So sorry. Victoria Sterling had built her empire on logic, on data, on calculated risks, not on the words of a grieving child. She took a step toward the helicopter. 20 seconds, Sophie's voice cracked. Mommy showed me, in the dream. She said you're important, said I had to save you. That stopped Victoria cold. She turned back to look at the girl one more time. Sophie had twisted in her father's arms, her blue eyes boring into Victoria's with an intensity that seemed impossible for a child. Please, Sophie whispered. 10 seconds. Victoria's hand was on the helicopter door. Patricia was gesturing impatiently from inside. The pilot gave her a thumbs up. The Chicago deal waited. Her entire future waited. 5 seconds. In the end, it wasn't logic that made Victoria Sterling step back from the helicopter. It wasn't the child's countdown or her specific technical details. It was something in Sophie's eyes, a reflection of loss that Victoria recognized from her own mirror. From the days after her parents' car accident when she was 15, when she'd sworn she'd never be powerless again. 4. Victoria stepped back. 3. She held up her hand to the pilot. Wait. 2. Marcus was moving toward her, confused. Ma'am? 1. The sound wasn't an explosion. Not at first. It started as a high-pitched whine, barely audible over the rotor noise. Then a sharp crack like a tree branch breaking. The helicopter lurched sideways, and suddenly fuel was spraying from beneath the left engine cowling, exactly where Sophie had pointed. The pilot's training kicked in immediately. Emergency shutdown, rotors slowing, crew evacuating as aviation fuel pooled across the helipad. In the chaos that followed, fire suppression systems engaging, security protocols activating, Patricia scrambling out of the helicopter with her laptop clutched to her chest. Victoria stood frozen, watching the spreading pool of fuel that could have been ignited by engine heat at any moment. If they'd been airborne. She turned to find Michael and Sophie, but the maintenance door was closing behind them. Through the reinforced glass, she caught one last glimpse of Sophie's face. The girl wasn't smiling. There was no satisfaction in her expression, just a deep, exhausted relief. And something else. As their eyes met through the glass, Sophie mouthed 2 words that Victoria couldn't quite make out. Words that would haunt her in the days to come, as she tried to understand what had just happened and why a 7-year-old girl she'd never met had known her helicopter would fail. The words looked like, "Thank you." Or perhaps, "Not yet." The emergency responders arrived within minutes, flooding the helipad with foam and securing the scene. Victoria answered their questions on autopilot, her mind elsewhere. The Bentley acquisition would have to wait. The Chicago board would be furious. Her stock price would take a hit from the delayed meeting. But she was alive. As the investigators began their work, one of them, a veteran mechanic named Rodriguez, whistled low. "Ms. Sterling, you're one lucky woman. This fuel line, it's a microscopic stress fracture. Invisible to standard inspection. Would have failed catastrophically under flight pressure. Probably would have happened right over the Hudson." Victoria nodded, barely hearing him. Her mind was on a different question entirely. How had Sophie known? And more disturbing, what else did that strange, sad child know about Victoria Sterling's future? The investigation would take days. The merger would be rescheduled. The business world would spin on. But on that windswept helipad, as November threatened snow and her empire waited for her next move, Victoria Sterling made a decision that had nothing to do with stock prices or hostile takeovers. She was going to find Michael Chen and his daughter Sophie. She was going to learn the truth. Even if that truth changed everything. The Sterling Industries HR database glowed on Victoria's laptop screen at 2:47 a.m., her corner office bathed in the blue light of multiple monitors. She'd sent everyone home hours ago, even Patricia, whose protests about the rescheduled Chicago meeting had fallen on deaf ears. For the first time in her career, a business deal felt insignificant compared to the mystery consuming her thoughts. Michael Chen, Maintenance Level 2. Employed for 18 months. Exemplary record. Single father. Emergency contact. Mrs. Eleanor Park. Relationship listed as neighbor babysitter. Victoria had built her empire on information, on knowing more than her competitors, on seeing patterns others missed. But Sophie's face haunted her. Those impossible blue eyes. That certainty. No 7-year-old should carry such weight in their gaze. Her private investigator, James Donnelly, answered on the second ring despite the hour. Ms. Sterling, I assume this isn't about the Bentley acquisition. I need everything on a Michael Chen, she said without preamble. Maintenance worker at Sterling Industries. Focus on his daughter Sophie. Specifically any medical records, psychiatric evaluations, anything unusual. Time frame. Yesterday. A pause. Understood. And Ms. Sterling? My sources at the NTSB say that helicopter failure would have been catastrophic. Whatever made you step back? Just find the information, James. She ended the call and pulled up the security footage from the helipad again. She'd watched it 17 times already, each viewing revealing new details. The way Sophie had moved with purpose, not wandering like a typical child. The exact moment she'd started her countdown, as if triggered by some invisible signal. The profound sadness in Michael's eyes as he'd carried her away. Her desk phone rang. The night security desk. Ms. Sterling, there's a Michael Chen here. Says it's urgent. Should I? Send him up. 10 minutes later, Michael stood in her office doorway, still in his maintenance uniform but looking haggard, aged a decade since the afternoon. He clutched a manila folder to his chest like a shield. She couldn't sleep, he said without greeting.
Keep saying she needs to tell you something else. I know it's inappropriate coming here, but... He trailed off, seeming to realize the absurdity of a janitor standing in the CEO's office at 3 a.m. Victoria gestured to a chair. Where is Sophie now? With Mrs. Park, our neighbor. She's used to... He swallowed hard.
To Sophie's episodes. How long has she been having these premonitions? Michael's hands tightened on the folder. Since Amy died. My wife, 13 months ago. Brain aneurysm. Sophie was there when it happened. She kept telling Amy not to go jogging that morning, kept crying and begging. We thought it was just a tantrum. Amy went anyway. Collapsed in Central Park. Dead before the ambulance arrived. The office fell silent except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of night traffic far below. After that, Sophie started knowing things. Small things at first. When the milk would spoil before the date. Which elevator would break down when people were lying. Michael's voice cracked. The doctor said it was trauma response, hypervigilance, pattern recognition, grief manifesting as magical thinking. But then she saved our neighbor's son, told him not to get on the school bus. He listened. Kids listened to Sophie. Bus got hit by a semi on the FDR drive. 3 children died. Victoria's corporate mask slipped. The September accident, I remember the news coverage. That's when I knew it wasn't grief. Michael opened the folder, spreading newspaper clippings across Victoria's pristine desk. October, she warned a stranger about a gas leak. November, she told me not to take a certain subway. December, she knew about the crane collapse in Queens 12 minutes before it happened. I started documenting everything. The clippings painted a pattern. A little girl who sensed danger with impossible accuracy. Always specific. Always right. Always carrying that same haunted expression in the grainy photos. Why didn't you come forward, the authorities, the media, and turn my daughter into a circus act? Michael's sudden anger surprised them both. Have scientists poking at her? Government agents? Religious fanatics claiming she's possessed or blessed or whatever story fits their agenda? She's 7 years old. She lost her mother. She doesn't understand why she knows these things, and they terrify her. Every vision is someone's potential death. What kind of childhood is that? Victoria studied the man before her. Michael Chen wasn't what she'd expected. His English carried a slight Manchester accent. His bearing suggested education beyond his current station. This was a man who'd made choices, sacrifices. "You're not really a janitor," she said. A bitter smile. PhD in quantum mechanics from MIT. Theoretical physics focus. Amy was a neuroscientist at Columbia. We met at a conference on consciousness studies. He laughed humorlessly. Ironic, isn't it? We spent our careers studying the nature of reality and awareness. Then our daughter develops abilities that shatter everything we thought we knew. Why the career change? Sophie's abilities became stronger after Amy died. More frequent, more specific. I needed a job with flexible hours. Good health insurance, no questions asked when I had to leave suddenly. Your company's benefits package for service workers is exceptional, Ms. Sterling. And I thought keeping a low profile would protect her. Until today. Until today? Michael leaned forward. She's never been wrong. Ms. Sterling. Not once. And this afternoon after we left, she had another vision. About you. Victoria's pulse quickened. What did she see? That's what she needs to tell you herself. She says it has to be exact, her exact words, or it won't help. He stood abruptly. Can you come with me? I know it's an insane request. You don't know us. But Sophie says you're important. Not just the helicopter, something bigger. Every instinct from Victoria's corporate life screamed warnings. This could be an elaborate con, a kidnapping setup, a delusional father enabling a disturbed child. But her instincts had also told her to board that helicopter. And those instincts would have killed her. I'll drive myself, she said, reaching for her coat. You can give me the address. Michael's relief was palpable. Thank you. And Ms. Sterling? Whatever Sophie tells you, please remember she's just a child. She doesn't always understand what she sees. Sometimes the messages come through scrambled, like a radio signal through static. Amy had theories about quantum consciousness, about how Sophie might be accessing information from probability streams, but Mr. Chen, Victoria interrupted. Your 7-year-old daughter gave me the exact location and timing of a mechanical failure that 3 separate inspection teams missed. I'm past the point of skepticism. As they waited for the executive elevator, Michael spoke quietly. Sophie calls them the whispers, says they sound like mommy, but not quite. Says mommy shows her pictures of what might happen if people don't listen. The elevator arrived with a soft chime as they descended through the sleeping building. Victoria found herself thinking about her own parents, about the car accident she'd survived when they hadn't. She'd been 15, old enough to understand that the black ice on the highway had been random chance, nothing more. But for months afterward, she'd wondered why she'd insisted on sitting in the back seat that night when she usually fought for the front. Such a small choice, such massive consequences. Does Sophie ever see good things? She asked as they reached the parking garage. Positive outcomes? Michael's expression darkened. Only what needs to be prevented. Only the disasters. It's like she's some kind of early warning system. But only for tragedy. Can you imagine? 7 years old and every vision is death or destruction. Every whisper is loss. Victoria could imagine. Success at her level required a similar clarity, seeing the corporate disasters before they struck, the hostile takeovers before they materialized. But she could turn that ability off, could choose when to engage it. Sophie, it seemed, had no such control. There's one more thing, Michael said as they reached Victoria's Tesla. Sophie's been drawing pictures. Since yesterday. Since she saw you. The same image over and over. I don't understand what it means, but maybe you will. He handed her a child's drawing. Crayon on construction paper. It showed 2 figures, a tall woman in black and a small girl with yellow hair. They were holding hands. Behind them, buildings fell like dominoes. Above them, a date was written in careful, childish numbers. December 15th. 3 weeks away. She won't tell me what happens on that date, Michael said quietly. Just keep saying you need to know. Says you're the only one who can change it. Victoria stared at the drawing, at the falling buildings, at the two figures standing together against catastrophe. In her world of leveraged buyouts and market predictions, she'd learned to trust patterns, to see connections others missed. But this was beyond any pattern she'd known. She put the car in drive, following Michael's directions into the pre-dawn darkness of Queens. Somewhere in a modest apartment, a 7-year-old girl waited with a message that might reshape everything Victoria Sterling thought she knew about the world. And perhaps about herself. The apartment building in Forest Hills stood like a tired sentinel against the November dawn, its brick facade bearing the scars of decades of New York winters. Victoria parked her Tesla between a rusted Honda and a delivery truck, the incongruity of the luxury vehicle in this working-class neighborhood not lost on her. This was a universe away from her penthouse on Central Park West, yet something about the quiet street felt oddly familiar. Michael led her up 4 flights of stairs, apologizing for the broken elevator. "Sophie will be awake," he said softly. "She hasn't slept since yesterday. Says the whispers are too loud." The apartment door bore 3 locks and a mezuzah. Inside, the space was small but meticulously clean, filled with the kind of careful organization that spoke of a single parent managing chaos. Bookshelves lined every wall, crammed with physics journals, neuroscience texts, and children's picture books in unlikely harmony. The refrigerator displayed Sophie's artwork, dozens of drawings, all featuring the same recurring elements: clock faces, calendar pages, and shadowy figures standing at crossroads. "Sophie?" Michael called gently. "Ms. Sterling is here." The girl emerged from what must have been her bedroom, still in frozen pajamas, her strawberry blonde hair tangled from restless turning. She clutched a stuffed elephant that had seen better days, but her eyes, those impossible blue eyes, were alert and focused, tracking Victoria with an intensity that seemed to pierce straight through her. "You came," Sophie said simply. "The whispers said you might not." An elderly Korean woman rose from the couch where she'd been knitting. "This is Mrs. Park," Michael explained. "Eleanor, this is Ms. Sterling." Mrs. Park studied Victoria with sharp intelligence. "The helicopter woman. Sophie drew you before she met you, many times." She gathered her knitting. "I'll make tea. The child needs to say what she needs to say." As Mrs. Park busied herself in the kitchen, Sophie approached Victoria with the careful steps of someone navigating a minefield. She stopped just out of reach, her head tilted as if listening to something only she could hear. "They're angry I saved you," she said matter-of-factly. "Not angry, sad angry, like when Daddy says we can't have ice cream for dinner." Michael moved to intervene, but Victoria held up a hand. "Who's angry, Sophie?" "The whispers, they show me the paths like a big tree with lots of branches. You were supposed to..." She frowned, searching for words. "To go away on the helicopter. Then things would be simple. But I changed it. Now the tree has new branches. Complicated branches." Victoria knelt to Sophie's eye level, her Armani suit incongruous against the worn carpet. "What do you see on the new branches?" Sophie's free hand moved to Victoria's face, not quite touching, tracing something in the air. "You're looking for someone, have been looking for so long. The whispers show me your dreams sometimes, empty rooms, a music box that plays wrong. Names you can't remember." Ice formed in Victoria's chest. She'd never told anyone about the recurring nightmares, the empty nursery, the broken music box playing a lullaby she couldn't quite place. Even her therapist didn't know. "Sophie," Michael warned, but his daughter continued. "December 15th, Sophie said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "That's when the branches come together, all of them. The old path and the new path. That's when you find what you lost. But first, buildings fall. People scream. Unless what?" Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "Unless you remember. But the whispers won't show me what you need to remember. They say it's locked away. Behind doors you built yourself." Mrs. Park returned with tea, the domestic normalcy of ceramic cups and steam a strange counterpoint to Sophie's words. The older woman sat beside the girl, stroking her hair with practiced comfort. "Tell her about the other thing, child," Mrs. Park said gently. "The thing that scared you." Sophie nodded, wiping her nose with her pajama sleeve. "There's someone else. In the shadows of the tree, they've been watching you for a long time. They know about the empty rooms, too. They're why the buildings fall." "Who?" Victoria's corporate composure cracked. "Who's watching me? I can't see their face. It's all dark, but they have something that belongs to you, something they took, and on December 15th, they're going to take something else. Something bigger." Sophie's voice grew urgent. "The whispers show me a clock. 11:47 a.m. That's when it starts. Wall Street, the old building with the columns. You'll be there for a meeting. Don't go. Please don't go." Victoria's mind raced. December 15th. She pulled out her phone, checking her calendar. The Dunmore Holdings final negotiation, the biggest acquisition of her career. $20 billion. The old NYSE building. "That meeting is crucial," she said, more to herself than the child. "If I don't attend, people die." Sophie's voice cracked with desperation. "Hundreds of people die. The whispers show me their faces. They have families, children like me, like I was supposed to have." She cut herself off, pressing her face into the stuffed elephant. "Like you were supposed to have what?" Victoria asked gently. But Sophie was done, curling into Mrs. Park's embrace, her small body shaking with exhaustion and the weight of knowledge no child should bear. The older woman looked at Victoria over Sophie's head. "This gift is killing her," Mrs. Park said quietly. "Each vision takes something. Amy understood it better. The neurological cost. The human brain isn't meant to process temporal information this way. She burns through neurotransmitters like a racing engine burning oil." Michael knelt beside his daughter. "Sophie, honey, is there anything else? Anything that might help Ms. Sterling?" Sophie lifted her head, her face streaked with tears. "The music box. From your dreams. It's real. Someone kept it. Find the music box. Find the truth. Find the truth. Save the people." Her eyes fluttered closed. "So tired. Daddy, the whispers are quiet now. Can I sleep?" "Of course, sweetheart." Michael lifted her easily, her small form limp with exhaustion. "I'll be right back, Ms. Sterling." As he carried Sophie to her room, Mrs. Park began clearing the teacups. "She's never been wrong," the older woman said conversationally, as if discussing weather. "Last month she told me not to visit my sister in New Jersey. I went anyway. Stubborn old fool. Gas explosion in the restaurant next door to where we were having lunch. Only survived because Sophie had insisted I sit facing the window, near the exit. Just in case. Grandma Park, just in case. Has she ever changed anything major, like the December 15th prediction?" Mrs. Park's hand stilled on the cups. "Once, the school bus. She saved 37 children, but the cost..." She was in the hospital for a week afterward. Seizures. The doctors found nothing wrong. But Amy knew. She said Sophie's brain was overwriting reality, forcing quantum probability to collapse in new directions. That it was like trying to redirect a river with bare hands. Michael returned, his face grave. "She's asleep. Really asleep for the first time in days." He moved to the window, staring out at the lightening sky. "I know this is insane. I know you have no reason to believe any of this. But Sophie's never been wrong, and she's never been this scared." Victoria rose, her mind already shifting into crisis mode. "The Dunmore acquisition is the largest hostile takeover in a decade. If I pull out, if I'm not there, your company survives without you," Michael said bluntly. "Those hundreds of people don't survive without Sophie's warning, without your action." The drawing was still in Victoria's hand, the two figures holding hands while buildings fell. She studied it again, noting details she'd missed. The tall figure wasn't just wearing black. She was wearing a specific suit, one with distinctive buttons. A suit Victoria had commissioned but hadn't yet received. A suit that would be delivered in 3 weeks. "How does she know?" Victoria whispered. "We don't understand it fully," Michael admitted. Amy had theories about consciousness, about how trauma might unlock latent abilities, about quantum entanglement between minds. But honestly, we don't know. We just know it's real. Victoria made her decision. I need everything. Every prediction she's made. Every detail about December 15th. Everything about these whispers. And I need you to think, is there any connection between Sophie and me? Any reason she would dream about me before we met? Michael and Mrs. Park exchanged glances. There is one thing, Michael said slowly. Sophie was born at St. Bartholomew's, February 12th, 2018. Emergency C-section. Amy always said there was something strange about that night. Medical records went missing. Staff were transferred. She could never shake the feeling that something happened, something the hospital covered up. Victoria's blood chilled. St. Bartholomew's, February 2018. She'd been there too, though the memories were fragmented, locked behind walls of trauma and medication. A car accident, emergency surgery, weeks of recovery she could barely recall. I need to go, she said abruptly. But I'll be in touch. If Sophie has any more visions. Ms. Sterling, Mrs. Park interrupted. The child asked me to give you this if you believed her. She handed Victoria a small, sealed envelope. She said you'd know when to open it. Said the whispers told her it was important. Victoria took the envelope, its weight negligible but its presence suddenly overwhelming. As she moved toward the door, Michael caught her arm. Whatever's coming, he said urgently. Whatever December 15th means, Sophie risked everything to warn you. The visions are killing her, but she chose to save you anyway. Don't waste that gift. Outside, dawn was breaking over Queens, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. Victoria sat in her car for a long moment staring at the envelope. Her entire life had been built on control, on seeing 3 moves ahead, on never being caught off guard. But Sophie Chen had shattered that illusion in a handful of seconds on a helipad. She thought of the music box from her dreams, the empty rooms, the sense of loss that had driven her to build an empire, as if success could fill a void she couldn't name. December 15th loomed like a storm on the horizon, but for the first time in years, Victoria Sterling wasn't thinking about stock prices or hostile takeovers. She was thinking about a 7-year-old girl who saw death and chose to prevent it. A girl who knew things about Victoria that Victoria didn't know about herself. A girl whose drawings showed them standing together as the world fell apart. Victoria started the car and drove toward Manhattan, toward her tower of glass and steel, toward a life that suddenly felt like a carefully constructed lie. In her pocket, Sophie's envelope waited, patient as a bomb, holding secrets that would either save hundreds of lives or destroy everything Victoria had built. The whispers, Sophie had said, were angry she'd saved her. But why? What path had Victoria Sterling been meant to take? And who was waiting in the shadows of December 15th with something that belonged to her? As she crossed the Queensboro Bridge, the Manhattan skyline rising before her like a promise or a threat, Victoria made a decision that would have seemed impossible 24 hours ago. She was going to tear her life apart, piece by careful piece, until she found the truth Sophie's whispers promised. Even if that truth destroyed her. Especially then. Victoria Sterling hadn't slept in 53 hours. Her office had become a war room, every surface covered with documents, photographs, and medical records. The Dunmore acquisition files lay abandoned in a corner, $20 billion suddenly insignificant compared to the mystery consuming her life. James Donnelly, her investigator, sat across from her desk, his usually composed demeanor cracked with concern. Victoria, what I'm about to show you, it changes everything. He spread a series of documents before her. Hospital records from St. Bartholomew's, February 2018. But not just any records. These were from restricted archives. The kind that required federal warrants or significant bribes to access. You were there for 17 days, James began. Not for a car accident. That was the cover story. You were there because you were pregnant, Victoria. And something went catastrophically wrong. The words hit her like physical blows. Pregnant. The empty rooms in her dreams. The music box playing a lullaby. Fragments of memory she'd attributed to medication-induced hallucinations suddenly crystallized into horrifying clarity. "That's impossible," she whispered. "I would remember. They made sure you wouldn't." James produced another file. Dr. Marcus Thornfield, head of neurology at St. Bartholomew's at the time, pioneered an experimental treatment for traumatic memory suppression, left the hospital 1 month after your discharge, now runs a private clinic in Switzerland treating wealthy clients who want to forget. Victoria's hands shook as she examined the records. Blood tests, ultrasounds, admission forms with her signature, all dated February 2018, all indicating a pregnancy in distress. "There's more," James continued relentlessly. "The pediatric ward recorded 2 births on February 12th, yours at 11:43 p.m. and Amy Chen's at 11:51 p.m. Same medical team. But here's where it gets strange. The Chen baby was recorded as stillborn in the initial documentation. Then the records were altered. Suddenly, miraculously, Sophie Chen was alive and healthy. You're suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm showing you facts. Your baby's death certificate was signed by Dr. Thornfield at 11:52 p.m. Sophie Chen's birth certificate was signed by the same doctor at 11:53 p.m. 1 minute apart, same weight, same blood type, same distinctive birthmark on the left shoulder that, according to Michael Chen's insurance records, Sophie still has today." Victoria stood abruptly, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood as she paced. "This is insane. You're telling me Sophie is—" "I'm telling you that St. Bartholomew's had a problem in 2018. A trafficking ring selling babies from vulnerable mothers. Single women. Women with no family support. Women who could be convinced their babies had died." James's voice softened. "Women like you were then, Victoria. 20 years old, alone, building Sterling Industries from nothing. A baby would have derailed everything. I would never have." But the protest died on her lips. Because buried beneath 7 years of suppressed trauma was a memory. Herself at 20, terrified and alone, being told her daughter had died. The grief so overwhelming that when Dr. Thornfield offered to help her forget, to let her move forward, to build the empire she'd dreamed of. "Oh God," Victoria breathed. I let them take her memories, take her from my mind like she never existed." "The trafficking ring was exposed 6 months later," James continued. 17 arrests, but Thornfield was already gone. And certain records, including yours, conveniently disappeared. The Chen family was never investigated. By all accounts, they believed Sophie was their biological daughter until Amy's death. Victoria thought of Michael's words. Amy always said there was something strange about that night. Medical records went missing. Staff were transferred. Amy knew. Victoria said quietly. Somehow, she knew Sophie wasn't theirs. That's why she was researching consciousness, quantum entanglement. She was trying to understand how Sophie could have memories, abilities that didn't come from her or Michael. "There's one more thing." James pulled out a final photograph. This was taken from hospital security footage I managed to acquire. February 12, 2018, 11:58 p.m. The grainy image showed a young woman, Victoria, 7 years younger, barely conscious on a gurney. A nurse was placing something in a box beside her. Even in the poor quality, the object was recognizable. A music box, the music box from her dreams. "Where is it now?" Victoria demanded. According to shipping records, it was sent to a long-term storage facility in Brooklyn, paid for through a trust that traces back to— James hesitated. "To your parents' estate, specifically a subsidiary company your father created before his death. A company now owned by Dunmore Holdings." The room tilted. Dunmore Holdings. The December 15th acquisition. The biggest deal of her career. "They have her music box," Victoria said numbly. "They've had it all along. They've been waiting." "Victoria," James said urgently, "if Dunmore knows about Sophie, if they've been planning this—" "The building's falling," Victoria interrupted. "Sophie's vision. It's not a terrorist attack. It's not random. They're going to use the acquisition meeting to destroy evidence, to silence everyone who might know the truth, including me." Her phone buzzed. "Patricia." Texting from outside. Marcus Dunmore just called. Says the December 15th meeting is non-negotiable. Says he has something personal to discuss with you. Something about your past. Victoria stared at the message, pieces of a 7-year puzzle finally clicking into place. Marcus Dunmore. Old money. Old connections. On the board of St. Bartholomew's in 2018, had tried to buy Sterling Industries 3 times over the years, always offering far more than market value. He didn't want her company, he wanted her silence, and on December 15th, he planned to ensure it. Permanently. James, Victoria said, her voice steady despite the earthquake in her chest. I need you to get Michael and Sophie Chen somewhere safe. Today. And I need every piece of evidence about St. Bartholomew's, about Thornfield, about that night. Everything. What are you planning? Victoria moved to her window, looking out at the city she'd conquered while forgetting she'd once been conquered herself. Sophie saved my life on that helipad. She's been paying the price for my memories, carrying visions I should have been strong enough to face. She's my daughter, James. My daughter who thinks her mother is dead while I've been sitting in this tower, building an empire on the grave of her existence. Victoria. December 15th, she continued. Marcus Dunmore thinks he's orchestrating my destruction, but he's made one crucial mistake. What's that? Victoria turned from the window, and James saw something in her expression that made him understand why she'd become the youngest Fortune 500 CEO in history. Not despite her losses, but because of them. He gave my daughter back to me, Victoria Sterling said quietly. And there's nothing more dangerous than a mother who's remembered what she's lost. She picked up her phone, scrolling through 7 years of calendar entries. 7 years of acquisitions and mergers and victories that felt hollow now. December 15th glowed on the screen like destiny. Patricia, she said when her assistant answered, clear my schedule for the next 3 weeks. Everything except December 15th. Ms. Sterling, the Chicago board is already furious about the delay. Patricia. Victoria's voice carried the weight of empires. In 3 weeks, either Sterling Industries becomes the most powerful company in America, or it ceases to exist entirely. Either way, Chicago can wait. She ended the call and picked up the envelope Sophie had sent with her. Inside was a single piece of paper, a child's drawing in purple crayon. It showed 2 figures, one tall, one small, standing before a building. But this time, the building wasn't falling. This time, they were walking away from it, hand in hand, as sunrise painted the sky behind them. At the bottom, in Sophie's careful printing, the whispers say you get to choose us. Victoria pressed the drawing to her chest, feeling the walls she'd built around her heart crack and crumble. Somewhere in Queens, a 7-year-old girl was suffering visions meant for her. Somewhere in Switzerland, a doctor held the key to memories that could restore or destroy her. And somewhere in a Manhattan boardroom, Marcus Dunmore was planning a massacre to keep his secrets buried. But he'd miscalculated. He'd assumed Victoria Sterling was the same woman who'd let them steal her daughter 7 years ago. He didn't know about Sophie's gift. He didn't know about the whispers. He didn't know that Victoria had already died once, on a helipad, in a future Sophie had rewritten. And a woman who's already died has nothing left to fear. Hold on, Sophie, Victoria whispered to the drawing. Mommy's coming. And this time I remember everything. The Chen apartment at 3 a.m. felt like a fortress under siege. Victoria had moved them to a secure location 12 hours ago, a safe house in Westchester that not even her board knew about. Sophie sat cross-legged on the living room carpet, surrounded by drawings that mapped impossible futures, while Michael paced behind her like a caged physicist. She's getting worse, Michael said quietly. The visions are coming faster. It's like something knows we're running out of time. Sophie looked up at Victoria. Her blue eyes, their daughter's eyes, fevered with exhaustion. You opened the envelope. Yes. Then you know. The whispers showed me the truth the day after Mommy Amy died. But I was too scared to understand. Too little. Sophie touched one of her drawings, this one showing a woman in a hospital bed. She loved me, Mommy Amy, even knowing I wasn't really hers. She said love makes its own truth. Mrs. Park sat in the corner, her knitting needles clicking in a rhythm that somehow steadied the room. She'd insisted on coming, declaring that her children needed her. Victoria found unexpected comfort in the older woman's practical presence. Sophie, Victoria knelt beside her daughter. Her daughter, the word still foreign on her tongue. I need to understand about December 15th. What exactly did the whispers show you? Sophie's small face scrunched in concentration. It's hard, like trying to remember a dream while you're still dreaming. But there's a man. He has silver hair and dead eyes. He's in a room with old things, your things. He's angry because you're remembering. Marcus Dunmore, Victoria confirmed. What else? He has helpers, people who've been watching you forever. They put something in the building, in the walls, in the bones of it. When you come for the meeting, when you sign the papers. Sophie shuddered. Fire. So much fire. But not regular fire. Special fire that burns everything, even the truth. Michael stopped pacing. Thermite. She's describing thermite charges, military grade, the kind that would vaporize evidence along with. He couldn't finish. 217 people, Sophie whispered. That's how many die if you go. I see their faces every time I close my eyes. But if you don't go, what happens if I don't go? Sophie's voice dropped to barely audible. He wins anyway. He has the proof about that night, about me, about what they did. He'll release it all. Make it look like you were part of it. Your company dies. You go to jail. And she started crying. I go back into the system. Foster care, tests, experiments, because everyone will know about the whispers. Victoria felt rage build in her chest, clean, purposeful rage. 7 years of suppressed maternal instinct crystallized into a single, burning need. Protect Sophie. There has to be a third option, she said. There always is. Sophie wiped her nose. The whispers keep showing me the music box. It's important. More important than just remembering. There's something inside it. Something Mommy Amy found before she died. Something about the other babies. Other babies? Victoria's blood chilled. You weren't the only one, Sophie said simply. The bad doctors did it to lots of mommies. Took their babies, sold them, made them forget. Some of the babies, they're like me. Special. Wrong. The whispers show me their faces sometimes. They're scared too. James Donnelly chose that moment to arrive, looking haggard but triumphant. I found Thornfield. He's in Zurich, and he's willing to talk for a price. How much? Not money. Protection. Seems Dunmore's been hunting him too. Thornfield knows what's planned for December 15th, says he'll give us everything. The memory suppression protocols, the trafficking records, all of it. But only in person. Only to you. Victoria stood. When? He'll meet us December 10th, 5 days before Dunmore's deadline, but Victoria... James hesitated. Reversing memory suppression at this level after this long? He says it's dangerous, potentially fatal. The brain doesn't like having 7 years of lies ripped away all at once. I'll risk it. No. Sophie's voice cracked with desperation. You can't. The whispers show me what happens if you remember too fast. Your brain breaks, like a computer with too many programs. And then December 15th happens anyway, but worse. So much worse. Michael knelt beside his daughter. Sophie, honey, there has to be a way. There is. Sophie looked directly at Victoria. But you won't like it. Nobody likes it. Even the whispers think it's mean. Tell me. Sophie took a deep breath. You pretend to lose. Let him think he's won. Go to the meeting, sign the papers, but first... She moved to her newest drawing. First, we make our own fire. The drawing showed the Dunmore building, but not in flames. Instead, it showed people streaming out of it, evacuating. In the corner, a timestamp. 11:43 a.m. 4 minutes before Sophie's predicted disaster. A fire alarm? Victoria studied the drawing. But there's security, not an alarm. Sophie's voice carried an edge Victoria had never heard before. Something ancient, knowing. Real fire, small fire, in the basement, where they keep the old papers. The evidence about the babies. It burns, but controlled. Everyone evacuates. The bad man can't trigger his big fire with people watching. Can't kill everyone. Can't kill the truth. Sophie, Michael said slowly, are you suggesting we commit arson? The whispers say it's not arson if you're burning your own things, Sophie replied. And Mommy Victoria owns part of that building. Has for years. The whispers showed me the papers. Victoria's mind raced. It was true. Sterling Industries held a 12% stake in the building through a shell company, a strategic investment from 3 years ago. But the thermite needs heat to trigger, Michael finished. A specific temperature. If the building's fire suppression systems are already active, if the structure is flooded with foam and water, the charges become useless. Victoria breathed. Dunmore's plan fails. Everyone lives. But you still lose your company, Sophie said sadly. Still lose everything. Because the evidence about me burns too. No way to prove what they did. No way to find the other special babies. Unless... She pulled out one final drawing. This one showed a room Victoria recognized, the boardroom where the meeting would take place. But in the drawing, the room held more than executives. It held cameras, reporters, FBI agents, all watching as Marcus Dunmore revealed his crimes, thinking he was destroying Victoria Sterling. You invite everyone, Sophie explained. Tell them you have a big announcement about the merger. Make it public. Live stream. Then when he threatens you with the truth about me, about that night, she smiled, an expression too sharp for a 7-year-old. You tell them first, everything, on live TV, and when he tries to run, to trigger his fire, to destroy the evidence. Oops. Buildings already evacuating. Systems already active. Everyone sees him for what he is. That's... James stared at the child. That's brilliant. Insane, but brilliant. The whispers help, Sophie said modestly. They show me all the ways it could go wrong. This way, only small things go wrong. Mommy loses her company, maybe. Goes to jail, maybe. But she lives. Everyone lives. And the other special babies get found. Get saved. Victoria found herself studying Sophie with new eyes. Not just her daughter. Not just a child with an impossible gift. But a strategist. A warrior. Someone who'd inherited more than just her eyes. There's still the music box, Victoria said. You said it was important. Sophie nodded. December 14th. The day before. That's when you get it. The whispers show me how. But, her face clouded. But someone dies getting it, someone who chose to help, I can't see who. The whispers won't show me faces anymore. Just shadows. Silence fell over the room. In it, Victoria heard the weight of impossible choices. Save her empire or save lives. Keep her secrets or expose them. Protect Sophie or use her gift to protect everyone. No, she said finally. No one dies. Not for me. Not for this. Sophie tilted her head. The whispers say you're wrong. Say someone always pays. That's how the universe balances, but... She brightened slightly. But they also say the person who pays gets to choose. And choosing matters. Changes things. Makes the payment worth something. Victoria pulled Sophie into a hug, their first real embrace. The child stiffened, then melted against her, and Victoria felt 7 years of loss compress into a single moment of found. I'm sorry, Victoria whispered. I'm so sorry I forgot you. Let them make me forget you. The whispers say forgetting was a kindness, Sophie mumbled against her shoulder. Say remembering me would have broken you then. You were too young, too alone. Now you're strong enough. Now you can remember without breaking. What else do the whispers say? Sophie pulled back, meeting Victoria's eyes. They say December 15th changes everything, but not how everyone thinks. They say the real change isn't the fire or the truth or the company. The real change is... She frowned, listening. Family. The real change is family. Finding it, making it, choosing it. Michael cleared his throat. So we have a plan. Controlled fire, public revelation, save lives, expose Dunmore, but Victoria, the cost. I've paid higher prices for lesser victories, Victoria said firmly. Sterling Industries was built on a lie, that success could fill the void where Sophie should have been. If I have to burn it down to save her. To save everyone, then we burn it down. The whispers like you, Sophie said suddenly. They didn't before, when you were just the helicopter lady. But now they like you. Say you're learning. Learning what? Sophie smiled, a real smile, not wise beyond her years, not burdened with terrible knowledge. Just a 7-year-old who'd found her mother. Learning to choose us instead of them. People instead of things. Love instead of fear. She yawned hugely. Can I sleep now? The whispers are quiet. They said everything they needed to say. As Michael carried Sophie to bed, Mrs. Park spoke for the first time in an hour. In Korea, we have a saying, the bird that flies from a burning house builds the strongest nest. You're about to burn down everything you built, child. Question is, what will you build next? Victoria looked at the drawings scattered across the floor. Futures spread before her like a deck of cards. Most led to death or loss or both, but one, just one, led to that sunrise picture. 2 figures walking away from the past, toward something new. A family, Victoria said quietly. I'm going to build a family. Mrs. Park smiled and returned to her knitting. Good, about time. Now who wants tea? We have 5 days to save the world. Can't do that without proper tea. And in that moment, in a safe house in Westchester, surrounded by impossible choices and improbable allies, Victoria Sterling felt something she hadn't experienced in 7 years. Hope. December 14th arrived wrapped in an unseasonable fog that turned Manhattan into a ghost city. Victoria stood in the basement of the Dunmore building at 3 a.m., James beside her with tactical gear that seemed absurd until you remembered they were technically committing a felony. Thornfield came through, James whispered, producing a key card. Full building access. Security feeds will loop for exactly 12 minutes. That's our window. They moved through shadows. 2 figures in black navigating a labyrinth of storage rooms and forgotten archives. 7 floors below the gleaming corporate facade, the building revealed its bones. A century of secrets accumulated like sediment. There, Victoria pointed to a door marked, Climate-Controlled Storage, Authorized Personnel Only. The key card chirped green. Inside, rows of filing cabinets and storage boxes stretched into darkness. But they weren't looking for files. In the furthest corner, behind boxes labeled with dates from before Victoria was born, sat a smaller vault. My father's private storage, Victoria murmured. Dunmore's held it all these years. Part of the hostile takeover of his company after the accident. The vault opened to reveal relics of a life Victoria barely remembered. Her parents' wedding album, her father's first dollar earned. And there, wrapped in faded tissue paper, the music box. It was smaller than her dream suggested. Delicate porcelain figured on a wooden base, the dancer's face worn smooth by tiny fingers. Her own, a lifetime ago. Victoria wound the key with trembling hands. The melody that spilled out was wrong, just as Sophie had said. Not broken, but altered. Where the original lullaby should have continued. New notes had been added, a pattern, a code. Morse, James recognized immediately. Your father was military before business. He'd have known. He listened, translating. Coordinates, and a date. February 12th, 2018. Victoria's hands stilled. The night Sophie was born. Your father died 3 years before that. Then how? The music box clicked. The base popping open. Inside, wrapped in plastic, lay a micro USB drive and a single photograph. Victoria's father standing next to a young man she recognized with a chill as Marcus Dunmore. Both were smiling. Both were wearing medical coats. Jesus, James breathed. They knew each other. Before. Your father and Dunmore were partners, Victoria finished, in whatever started at St. Bartholomew's. The USB drive felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. But before Victoria could pocket it, footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Multiple sets, moving fast. That's impossible. James checked his watch. We have 6 more minutes. The door exploded inward. Not security guards, mercenaries, professional. And leading them, silver-haired and elegant in a tailored suit despite the hour, Marcus Dunmore himself. Hello, Victoria, he said pleasantly. I thought you might come for this. Your father always said you were too much like him. Too curious, too stubborn. His eyes fell on the music box. He helped design the program, you know. Selective breeding, induced abilities, creating the next evolution of humanity. Sophie wasn't an accident. None of them were. Victoria's mind reeled. Her father, the man who'd taught her integrity, who'd built ethical business practices into Sterling Industries' foundation. Part of this. He had second thoughts, Dunmore continued, when his own daughter became pregnant, when he realized his granddaughter would be taken, experimented on. He tried to stop it. The car accident was regrettable, but necessary. You killed him. I preserved the project. 37 children with extraordinary abilities, placed with carefully selected families, studied, documented, waiting for activation. Dunmore smiled coldly. Sophie's the strongest. The only one who can see temporal probability streams. Do you understand what that means? What she's worth to the right buyers? She's 7 years old. She's a weapon. Imagine it. Knowing your enemy's moves before they make them, preventing disasters or causing them, controlling the flow of history itself. He gestured to his men. Take them. The building's prepared for tomorrow. Ms. Sterling's tragic breakdown and terrorist attack will explain everything. The world will mourn a brilliant mind lost to madness. That's when the lights went out. In the absolute darkness, Victoria heard Sophie's voice. Impossible, because Sophie was safe in Westchester, but unmistakable. The whisper said you'd need help. So I brought some. Emergency lighting flickered on, revealing not Sophie but a teenager, maybe 14. Asian features, eyes that held the same otherworldly weight as Sophie's. Project Child 15, Dunmore breathed. Telepathic projection. You're supposed to be in Seattle. We're all here, the girl said. And suddenly the room filled with children. They walked through walls, appeared from shadows, manifested like dreams becoming real. 37 impossibilities standing in a basement, staring at the man who'd stolen their lives. Impossible. Dunmore stepped back. The handlers, the families. Sophie found us. A boy who couldn't be older than 10 explained. He was floating 3 inches off the ground. Showed us the truth in dreams. Taught us to work together. Taught us we're not weapons. He smiled. We're children, and children protect each other. What happened next occurred too fast for normal perception. The mercenaries' weapons jammed simultaneously. Their communications died. One by one, they dropped unconscious, minds overwhelmed by telepathic feedback. In seconds, only Dunmore remained standing, suddenly very alone. You can't, he stammered. The thermite charges. The dead man's switch. If I don't input the code every hour, we know, the floating boy said. We disabled them yesterday, all of them. In every building you rigged. Sophie showed us how. Past, present, future, it's all just probability, and we're very good at tilting probability. Victoria found her voice. Where is Sophie, really? Safe, the telepathic girl assured her. But she wanted us to tell you something. She says tomorrow still matters. Says you still need to tell the truth. All of it. On live TV. Because we're tired of hiding. Tired of being secrets. We want families who choose us, not own us. Dunmore made one last desperate play, lunging for the USB drive. He never reached it. Reality bent around him like light through a prism. And suddenly, he was somewhere else. Nowhere else. The children's eyes unfocused for a moment, and when they cleared, Marcus Dunmore had simply ceased to exist in that room. Where? Away, the girl said simply. Somewhere he can't hurt anyone. The whispers showed Sophie the place. Between heartbeats. Between thoughts, he's alive, just elsewhere, forever. In the silence that followed, Victoria understood the true weight of what her father had helped create. Not weapons, not experiments. Children with impossible gifts and terrible burdens. Children who'd found each other across impossible odds. Children who'd chosen mercy even for their tormentor. "The USB," she said quietly. "What's on it?" The floating boy landed gently. "Everything, every name, every family, every crime, but also," he smiled, "your father's confession, his plan to expose it all. He recorded it the night before he died. He knew they'd come for him, but he also knew you'd come for this. Eventually, when you were ready." Victoria clutched the music box, understanding finally why the melody had been changed, not broken, evolved, like the children standing before her, like Sophie, like herself. What now? Now? The telepathic girl tilted her head, listening to something only she could hear. "Now Sophie says you go to tomorrow's meeting, you tell the truth, you burn it all down, and then..." She grinned. "Then we get to be normal. Get to have families, get to choose our own futures instead of seeing them." One by one, the children faded away, teleporting, phasing, simply ceasing to be there, until only the girl remained. "Sophie says to tell you she loves you, says she's proud of you, says the whispers are finally quiet because tomorrow, everything changes. The right way this time." Then she too was gone, leaving Victoria and James alone in a basement with an empty vault and a universe of possibilities. "Did that just happen?" James asked. Victoria wound the music box again, listening to her father's coded message. Coordinates, a date. And now she understood. A promise. That truth would come. That love would find a way. That somewhere, a 7-year-old girl had rewritten the future to save not just her mother, but an entire generation of stolen children. "Yes," Victoria said, "and tomorrow we finish it." December 15th dawned clear and cold. Victoria Sterling stood before 300 of the world's most powerful people, every major news outlet, and a live stream audience of millions. The hostile takeover meeting had become something else entirely. She spoke for an hour. About St. Bartholomew's, about the trafficking, about the experiments, about Sophie and the 37 children who'd been turned into commodities. She named names, showed documents, played her father's confession. Sterling Industries' stock price cratered. Criminal investigations launched across 12 countries. But in a safe house in Westchester, a 7-year-old girl watched her mother choose truth over empire, love over power. The whispers were right, Sophie told Michael. She learned. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Sterling Industries dissolved within days, its assets liquidated to pay settlements to the families. Victoria faced no criminal charges. The evidence proved her a victim, not a perpetrator. But her business empire was ash. She didn't care. On a snowy morning 1 week before Christmas, Victoria knocked on an apartment door in Queens. Michael answered, Sophie peeking out from behind him. "Hi," Victoria said simply. "I know I have no right, no claim. But I wondered, could I spend Christmas with you? With my daughter?" Sophie stepped forward, taking Victoria's hand with the same certainty she'd shown on the helipad. "The whispers always said you'd come home. Just had to save the world first." "Did we? Save it?" Sophie considered this seriously. "We saved the part that mattered, the people part, the love part." She tugged Victoria inside. "Come on, Mrs. Park is making cookies, and Mommy Amy's recipe. She would have liked you, I think. Would have liked that you chose us." As Victoria entered the warm apartment, she felt the last walls around her heart crumble. She'd lost an empire, lost billions, lost everything she'd thought defined her. But Sophie was right. They'd saved the part that mattered. And in a kitchen in Queens, surrounded by the scent of cookies and the laughter of a 7-year-old girl who saw futures but chose to live in the present, Victoria Sterling finally understood what her father's message had really meant. Love finds a way, even through the ashes of everything else. Even then, especially then.